We are having the remaining relevant roundtable discussion. We've got 5 topics that we're going to cover today. And what we'll do is we'll basically go through each one at a time. So the first topic is staying connected and relevant with members and prospects, because I really believe it's just as important to make sure that we are relevant for our prospects during this time, because we don't want the pipeline to completely go away during this emergency. Number 2, we're going to be talking about how to handle staffing adjustments and layoffs. I love to be an optimistic guy. On today's call, I'm going to be a realistic guy. Some of you are going to have to make some tough decisions out there. So we're going to talk about how to best make those decisions and what we can do to survive through this. We're going to talk about what you do with your dues, your membership dues during this time. How are clubs handling membership dues and maybe restructuring some things when it comes to dues? Number 4, we're going to talk about some of the recent legislation that's happening in real time. We're getting some really good information from the National Club Association, and they've also put up a really good portal that if you haven't been to, you should probably check out with some more information on what's happening. And then we're going to break it into just idea sharing. Like I said, we've got people really from all over the world on this call, and people are in different stages of this thing. You've got some people that are under quarantine, some people that can operate at levels, and we've got people everywhere in between. So I'm just going to remind everybody now, if you don't mind, mute your microphone if you're on. That way, we've got probably close to 100 people are going to be on this today. We want to make sure that people can hear what's going on. So I will unmute you, or you'll unmute yourself as we actually get into the discussion topics here. So I'll introduce myself and our special guest here today. We're co-hosting this event. I'm Gabriel Aluisy from the Private Club Agency. I've also got the Private Club Radio Show, which is how a lot of you probably know me. At the agency level, we help clubs with their marketing, with membership communication, and I do some consulting for clubs that are building a communications and marketing plan, which right now is probably really critical, actually. So I don't want to spend too much time on myself, but if you want to learn more about me, maybe think about putting together some sort of plan during this crisis, communication plan, just let me know in the comments. Patrick, who works for me, will gather up all your information, and then we can touch base after this call. But I really want to welcome John Scherer, who is the general manager at the Charlotte City Club. John is kind of the impetus for getting this call today. He mentioned that this would be a great way to share what everyone is doing to remain relevant and to start sharing ideas that we can all use. John's a really great guy. I think you're going to enjoy what he has to say. So let me get into the format of today. We've got those 5 topics which I mentioned. What I'm going to do is sort of kick things off with John. We'll create a couple of talking points together, and hopefully that will just get some ideas flowing. And then we're going to open it up to the group for 5 or 10 minutes of discussion on each of these points. So John and I will go back and forth for a few minutes, and then we'll open up the floor to anyone who wants to have their voice heard. So make sure that you kind of virtually raise your hand in the chat. Let me know. I'll look at that, and Patrick, who works for me, will look at that, and we'll try to get you some floor time. But we definitely want people to participate. We're all in this together, and so we're kind of better and stronger together. And like I said, we've got people from all over the world, so we're going to get different ideas on this, which is really cool. As I mentioned, just make sure your microphone is muted. And when you are talking, when you've got the floor, just make sure you limit it to 30 seconds or so. And that way we can make sure that everyone who has something to say can get involved. It's just kind of unwieldy when we have this many people on one call. When you've got close to 100 people, it might be difficult. And one last thing I'll say is don't be this person. I don't know if you guys saw the viral video that was out there, but people were doing a Zoom call. It was I think it was social workers having kind of a professional get together, and the gal left her camera on and went to the bathroom during the Zoom call. So definitely don't be that girl or that guy. And without further ado, I think we're going to kick things off. So our first topic, John, if you could make sure you're unmuted there. I'm going to talk to you, John, about staying connected and relevant with our members and prospects. I've got a few talking points that I'm going to open it up to you, John, but some of the ways that I think we can remain relevant during this time. is number one, I think we need to find ways for our members to experience the club without walking through the doors. If you've heard my podcast, or if you've heard me speaking around the country the last 2 years, I've been talking about this for a long time. So sometimes it just takes something dramatic for action to be taken. But I think this is really a great time to start to get your members involved with your club, especially if you're a city club. Get them involved without having to walk through the doors. And what do I mean by that? I mean, getting maybe authors to come and do a sort of a virtual lecture about their books. You can get some of the most famous speakers in the world right now. You can get them, we call it the ungettable gets. Right now, everyone is at home, basically. And so some of the opportunities that didn't exist for you last month now exist because some of the smartest people out there are now giving their time freely. So don't be afraid to go after some of those ungettable people. You could even maybe look at some chefs, whether they're local chefs, maybe even celebrity chefs and entertainers, to do a virtual class or show. In fact, I think we've got Denny Corby on this call, who's going to be doing a virtual magic show for clubs that are interested. So that's one way you can try to have people experience the club without actually walking through your doors. Number two, in terms of remaining relevant to your existing membership, I think right now it's really important to provide safety tips, to provide healthy eating tips. How do you work out at home? My club sent me a communication with some video exercises that I could do at home, because we're like many of us, I was sitting around and on my computer and watching Netflix, watching The Tiger King during this time. And so it's good to get up and move around. Any tips like that you can provide for your members? Maybe get your golf professionals to do some golf drills, things like that. Number three is really to communicate daily. This is not a time to shut things down. This is really the time to ramp things up in terms of communication, because your members are relying on you, and they are looking right now, especially for someone to be optimistic, to give them really relevant information. I would suggest for you managers out there to maybe consider starting some sort of a fireside chat. You can do that over a platform just like this, like Zoom. Heck, just pull out your cell phone and record something, put it up on YouTube or on your social media accounts, and just let the membership know what's going on at your club. And then, we've seen a lot of clubs that are doing things like takeout delivery service. I've seen clubs that actually put together a pantry where you can order off of a list of things that you might need, whether that's food, hand sanitizer, toiletries, those sorts of things. I've even seen clubs do like kind of drive-through car washes right now. Like I said, every one of us is in a different situation in terms of what's allowable, but with whatever's within your power to be able to do for members, this is really the time to make an impact. We just built actually a mobile menu system for Bay Hill so that members can order right off their cell phones or from their desktops, and they can either go pick it up or it gets delivered to them within a certain area at the club. So things like that right now, clubs are getting nimble. John, I'd love to hear what you're doing at your club in terms of staying relevant for your members.
So Gabe, first I want to thank you for putting this together. I mean, Gabe and I started talking over last weekend about putting this together, and here we are. So Gabe thought we might have like 25 people that will participate, and I guess we're going to be close to 100. So just to give you a little background on the Charlotte City Club, we are in downtown Charlotte in a high-rise office building on the 31st and 32nd floor, and we are going to do a rooftop terrace on the 33rd floor. So we are in Charlotte. We are basically in a stay-at-home order right now. So the club is completely closed down. Being in a high-rise office building is obviously not conducive to a to-go type of situation. So the club is completely shut down. To go on some of the points that Gabe said, I mean, certainly, especially with members being in a stay-at-home, if you're in that situation, I don't know about you folks, but after a few days, I think people are going to start to get stir crazy, and they're going to look for social interaction. And that's where the club really comes in. And so we're moving towards a virtual club, and we've been working on that now for about a week. And starting next week, we're going to start doing some of our virtual clubs. So we have a number of different affinity clubs. One being our Vintners Club. We have a Barley and Hops. We have a Gridiron Club. We have Global Thinkers Book Club, and the list goes on. And so that we're going to do that all virtual through Zoom, just like we're doing this right now. But as far as communications, in the last 10 days, we probably have had 4 communications that went out. The last one just went out from the club president. The previous 3 came from me. And we're going to be producing, and we just had an executive committee meeting yesterday, and we're going to be meeting on a weekly basis now, which is unusual. The executive committee doesn't meet that frequently. So that's what's happening with us. But there's going to be another communication from the president early next week.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that Vintners Club, which I thought was an incredible idea. Tell people what you're doing with the Vintners Club and how you're kind of bringing it via Zoom.
So how we're going to do it via Zoom is that, of course, they can't come to the club. We're not going to be able to provide the wines, but where you can go when you're in a stay-at-home order is you still can go to the grocery store. So we're going to work through our wine vendors, and we're going to say, what wines do you have at the supermarket? In our case, we have 2 big supermarket chains here in Charlotte. One is Harris Teeter, which is part of Kroger, under the Kroger umbrella, and the other one is Publix, which is based out of Florida. So they're the 2 big players. So we're going to identify 2 bottles of wine, say it might be from Italy, and maybe they're Tuscan wines, and we would get those at Harris Teeter. We'd tell the members, go buy these bottles, and then they would, on that given night, we would have a Zoom wine tasting, and we'd have the rep walk them through those 2 wines.
I love that. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead now and kind of open up to everyone. If you've got something to say, if you're able to unmute yourself and just chime in here, otherwise put a comment in there and I'll can selectively unmute you. So does anyone else kind of want to talk about how they're staying relevant for their members right now and making them feel like a part of this community? I think right now more than ever, again, it's you got to create things. Nissa, let's see if I can pull you up. Are you guys not able to unmute yourselves? Let's see, Nissa, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and tell us what you're thinking at your club.
Well, we have an incredible fitness team at Mirabel, and they've actually started doing Zoom fitness classes from home because we've had to shut down our fitness center. And it's really made an impact already on our membership. They're also calling individually members and just checking in. So it's made a huge impact already. We're really proud of them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yep.
Hey, Gabe.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Michael McCurdy from New York.
Hey, Michael.
Hi. So what we, among the things we're doing is we started the first of our virtual happy hours last week. I'm sorry, just a day or 2 ago. And that's been great. We got great response from everybody. We also peeled off into extra rooms. So we identified rooms of the club and people who wanted to go off to the library, people who wanted to go off to one of the event rooms. The host moved them around. In fact, Towns is on here now, and he was the host of that meeting. So that was very, very good. We're also working with our programming, our theater, and our communications committee to create a series of online events that we're going to be rolling out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So just to kind of unpack that one a little bit, were you using the Zoom platform? Because I know with Zoom, you can sort of put people into separate rooms. Is that what you were using?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Towns, you want to speak to it a bit?
Sure. We did. We did use Zoom. We had a 2-hour block that we had announced through an email blast to the membership, and then had used our we have a private private Facebook page as well that members are involved in. So we used all of our internal communications to sort of drive people in to give them a little quick preview of how Zoom worked. And we had about 60, between 60 and 70 people show up for this. And we did, as Michael said, I sort of built the main room, which we sort of it was our sort of our virtual grill, which is our sort of gathering pub on the first level of the club. And then we had our virtual library and great hall and sort of other things that were familiar parts of the club.
That's awesome. So those are actual rooms of the club. If you guys have never stepped foot in the players, in fact, in that grill room, they've got Mark Twain's pool cue displayed there, which is pretty cool. So I love that idea. So creating a virtual space for your members that somehow mimics your existing club rooms. That's a fantastic idea. Does anyone else want to chime in here?
Hi, Gabe. Eddie Bullock.
Hey, Eddie. Eddie's
How you
coming
doing?
from the UK, as you can probably hear, guys.
Hello. How are you, Gabe? You know I'm involved with some clubs, but you've been over to Goodwood, so you mentioned about the golf coaching. So we've got a golf performance coach, and what they're doing is they're sort of setting out courses during the week, and then the golf coach comes in and does some exercises. So they've run it that they get a seniors, a ladies, and a juniors, and then for any of the guys that are more elite players, they're doing an elite player as well as everything else. And that's really keeping a good community spirit going.
I love that. Brittany, why don't you go ahead and chime in here? I know you just put a comment down there. Brittany, I guess that's Brittany Callier probably. I just unmuted you. Is that you, Brittany?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for our clubs, we still have a lot of clubs that are kind of open, kind of not. So for those that are, they're still, taking care of the golf course, we're suggesting having our agronomy team live stream and then let people ask questions via Facebook Live or Instagram Live, just on things that they normally wouldn't have time to just, sit there and explain. So
Right.
it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, very cool. Anyone else want to chime in on the conversation here before we move on to the next talking point?
Gabe.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
Hi there. I'm fine. Good morning, everyone.
By the way, go ahead and announce yourself because, again, we might not all know each other.
Okay. Donna Coyne with PCMA, Professional Club Marketing Association. Thanks for the invite, Gabe. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Had a meeting yesterday with some of our chapter presidents throwing ideas around. And one of the membership professionals said that they are doing the children's camps kind of virtual. So it's enabling them to start the camp earlier than waiting for the summer period and get more kids involved. And based upon the activities for the summer camp, they will set it up to where the parent can log in and they can join through Zoom, and the kids can see the other kids that would be in the actual camp. And based upon what those activities are, if it's, 45 minutes of golf swinging or whatever, then the club is providing the parent to pick up or for someone from the club to drop off the equipment that would be needed. So the member's child would be taking the camp from home, but taking it with their friends through the virtual
I love that.
opportunity.
I love that. And that actually reminds me of something that just happened at my son's school. Obviously is closed right now, and they're all first graders. The teacher created something on, the website's called Flipgrid. I'll put that in the comments. But basically it's a way you can send a short message to somebody privately, or you can share it with the class. He's a first grader, so all the little first graders are talking to each other, with a 5 or 10 second video. And that could be used actually for clubs, I think, for us to kind of be able to communicate and see each other. Because again, that's what a club is that's so important to be able to feel like you're in the room with somebody. We've got Bill from Loch Lomond that joined in. Bill, did you have something to say?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Hi, Gabe. You can hear
Bill.
me okay, I hope.
Yeah.
Hi. We just launched today Stay Connected Hub to the membership. And, it's a short video clips, variety of information. But 2 clips that we actually videoed today was the oldest tree in the golf course,
Nice.
which is actually down the first, hundreds of years old, this old oak tree. We got the course superintendent, myself, and did a bit of a sort of chat about that. And then Tom Weisskopf's our course designer, and Tom comes over every year, and we're doing a huge renovation on the golf course at the moment. And he's put in a very sneaky pot bunker on the 3rd to catch people out. And we did a bit of a sort of a background of what the decisions, why that was made, why Tom made that decision. And, you know, we did a bit of a video flyover as well, just to show members, you know, the sort of things that are happening at Loch Lomond. Because 40% of our members are overseas. So, you know, and a lot are from the States. So they have this huge historical quest for information about the club. So we've started that today, and it's had a real good response. Every Friday, so we're going once a week with this Stay Connected social hub. We're going to put information out, so they know that it's going to hit UK time 12:30 in the afternoon. So whatever that magic's to in America, I'm not sure. But people know it will be the same time on a Friday to try and get into some sort of routine. Right. I like that a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Being an international club, you have some experience with this a little bit already, I suppose, Bill. Yeah. Nothing's quite like this one. Yeah, my God, it's something else, you know, and everybody's got a different story, but yeah, everybody kind of wants to stay connected. Yep, absolutely. I think that's the main goal here is people need to feel value from their club, that they're getting the value, again, even if they don't walk through the doors, and then keeping that connection, making that feeling cohesive and part of something, I think is so important right now, because a lot of people, you know, we might take it for granted because we're with our families and things, but there's a lot of your members maybe that are single, they're alone, maybe they're stuck somewhere and they can't get to where they need to be. So more than ever, making them feel connected is so important. That's a great point, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I forgot to mention is we're planning to do a personal check-in with every member. So we're going to split it up amongst the management team, and we're going to reach out to every single member, just to the point you were mentioning, just to see how they're doing.
I love it.
And of course, tell them about the virtual club as well.
Right. I love that. That's fantastic, John. So, and did anyone else want to chime in here before we move on to our next talking point?
I'll chime in super quick.
Hey, Denny. Yeah. Hey, man.
Hey.
I like the background. Cool.
Thank you. I'm getting ready for the shows next week, so setting up the studio and everything. So
let us know who you are, Denny. Yep.
Oh yeah. So my name is Denny Corby. I travel the world doing an interactive comedy magic show, primarily in the private club world. Me and Gabe are going to be doing a podcast next week. And I'm doing a bunch of shows for clubs, which I didn't think this would blow up the way it would, but obviously it is now. But you know, so coming at it so I do a lot of club shows, as well as I'm a club member myself. I'm part of a club. One just little cool thing that I use in my business is a little program through Gmail called BombBomb. BOMB. It's only like, excuse me, like 30-40 bucks a month. And what it allows you to do is send video through email. But the neat thing is it takes the first, I believe, like 3, 4, 5 seconds and turns it into a GIF. I think it's the first 3 seconds. So what's interesting is it puts it automatically into the email. So you can hold up a piece of paper or a little note card that says, like, let's say you're trying to send an email to you, Gabe. I can put, "Hi, Gabe," on this piece of paper. So I can start the video with me holding the piece of paper and waving.
Nice.
And then when you open up the email, the first thing that they see is this like automated GIF that has me waving and you see your name. So it's just the interaction rate with emails went through the roof. So it's a way to interact, and it tracks and opens up emails so you can see who tracked, who watched, for how long, all that stuff. So you can send personalized emails and track everything for club members.
I love it. What a great tool, BombBomb. I just threw that in the. I've heard about that one. I looked into that a couple years back. So I put that in the chat window as well. But that sounds like a great idea. I never thought about using it as a GIF. That's really cool.
Hello, Gabe.
Yes. Hey, Michael Crandall, CNG. How are you, sir?
Outrageous. No change, my friend. First off, for those looking at the image in front of you, that is actually not a ceiling fan above my head. That's my beanie cap.
Nice.
But my wife Kim and I belong to a club in the Palm Springs area. It's called the Trilogy Polo Club. And they've started out there, and it's managed by Blue Star. And Blue Star has many properties around the country. But they went to all their properties and announced a couple days ago what they're calling the 5 o'clock wave. Now, this would apply to only your gated communities that are in clubs. And what they're asking everyone to do what they want to, at 5 o'clock, whatever time zone they're in, everyone takes their lawn chairs and goes sits on their driveway at the end of it. Some want to walk around the property, but and mindful your 6-foot distance, if you will. But it's been outrageously successful. People are getting outdoors. They're waving at their neighbors. Maybe they're venturesome and think we'll come over and have a glass of wine 6 feet away. But I find that's a really unique idea and find it pretty strong for the.
I love that. It sounds like the United States back in the 1950s, right? Like the old.
It does. When everybody had front porches.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. So we got to see the good in things like this. I mean, there's going to be some really unique things happening with clubs and getting back to our roots, I think, during this. So let's.
All right, I'll mute myself now, and you all go ahead.
All right, cool. All right, we're going to move on to the second talking point. If any ideas spark, please put them in the chat window still. If you didn't have a chance to chime in on a point that or something came later on, put it in the chat window. Patrick's going to be putting all this together in sort of a document that we can share. That way, we've all got all the information. We don't miss anything. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen real quick here, and we're going to go on to point number 2. Let's see. There we go. And let's see if I can get it to go. Point number 2 is staying connected and relevant with prospects. I think this is just maybe not as important. I think members need to be number 1. But if you're for the health of your club long term, this is not a time to forget your pipeline. All right. And so there's similar things that we can be doing that your membership director can be doing at the club level. Again, number 1 is just don't stop communicating. And the change here is that we don't want to necessarily focus on the sale. This is more about building the relationship. If you focus on the relationship now during this time, you provide relevant information, help for people, things that they would actually be interested on. When it comes time and things get back to normal, you're going to be in a much better position. So some of the same things that you're sharing with your members, I think you can share with prospective members. So those healthy eating tips, those at-home workouts, those golf drills, and et cetera, put those into some sort of automated email for your membership prospects as well. Again, if you need help setting up those sorts of things, that's the kind of stuff that we do here. I'm happy to help, or at least give you a little direction on what some of those emails could look like. I'm happy to send some samples along for you to go off of as well. I think you also need to talk about what your club is doing for members at this time. So prospects, by seeing what you're doing for your members, how you're taking care of them, how the membership is interacting during this time, will signal to them about the type of club you are, and I think that's going to help you long term in terms of converting some of those prospects into members. And the other thing is on your emails, just make sure to always end with on a positive note. So for instance, hey, we're looking forward to welcoming our members back soon, and we're looking forward to hopefully welcoming you back for a tour. Again, we don't want to be salesy in any way, and you know that obviously as a private club anyways. But most important right now is to keep that relationship going, because you don't want to find yourself with an empty pipeline in 3 to 6 months from now. John, do you have anything to add there in terms of remaining relevant to prospects before we open it up?
Well, first of all, if you have social media marketing, you probably need to pull it down if you haven't already done it and rework it. So we're in the process of doing all of our social media. I guess came down on Tuesday, and now we're in the process of changing the message, because the message that we were putting out there is certainly doesn't go well now. So that would be number 1. Number 2, with our existing prospects, we are inviting them to participate in the virtual club, as well as for people that really haven't seen the club. Julie, who's our membership director, she is putting together a virtual tour. She's going to sort of put a PowerPoint together. We're actually under construction as we speak. So there's a lot of things happening here at the club, and it has a lot of excitement. Actually, our initiation fee has actually went up in March, but our executive committee met yesterday, and we are postponing that increase until we reopen. So that's one thing she's able to do. In addition, they took it another step, which they've never done before, is if anyone applies for membership during this time, they're going to give them a $1,000 food credit on their account, and they do not pay dues until the club reopens.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to get into a little bit more of a lengthier dues discussion here in a moment. But right now, let's go ahead and open it up for any other ideas, keeping your your prospect pipeline healthy. Anyone else want to talk to that right now? Don't be shy. Again, I think the main thing here is just to be there, to make sure that you're visible, to make sure that you don't stop communicating all of a sudden, that you don't stop some of those communication efforts. That way you'll be in a better spot when we get down the line here. All right, we're going to move on to our next point here, which is going to be handling staffing adjustments and layoffs. Let me share the screen again here. And John, I'm going to ask you first. How are you handling that at the Charlotte City Club?
Well, we are going to have to lay off some staff. We actually were, and we're going to talk about this in a little while, but I think most of you are aware of the stimulus package that's out there. And unfortunately, 501c7 organizations are exempt from the SBA loan that we were hoping to get. And so with that, the executive committee determined that we did need to go ahead and do some staff layoffs. And so I actually, prior to this call, I was working on various letters to the various employees. So certainly we need to, in those letters, we want to show empathy. And of course, this is not their fault that this is happening. And this is a temporary layoff, and we want them back. And what I'm going to have my managers do is check in with these staff on a weekly basis and just see how they're doing and show that we care.
Yep, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? I know we got Scott Lockwood on this call. Scott, I'd love for you to kind of step in and tell me what the latest is at your club. We had you on Private Club Radio about a week and a half ago. But if you don't mind unmuting yourself and letting us know what's happening in Baltimore.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you now.
There we go. You can hear me now. Okay, good.
Cool.
Yeah, obviously, we did as much as we could for the staff lead into it, which is part of that conversation we had on Friday. Got that money ahead of any potential shutdown for the state. And then we sat down and did the executive committee went through and we did a cash flow and budgeting going forward and to see what the club could really prepare to take on. And the mindset really was that in order for us to come back strong and get these people hired into a viable employment opportunity, that we were going to need to lay off people and furlough, however you want to call it. But certainly our intention is to try to get back as many people as we can. But we're going into our summer season like many people are, especially in the Mid-Atlantic area. And we just had the winter, we had a huge loss, which is budgeted, and the summertime we would make that up. So at this point, we can't prepare to take on as many people as we would with the revenue not coming in from activity. And then you kind of get concerned that when we do have the chance to open back up, should we all be fortunate enough to be sometime throughout the summertime, do you ramp it back up when you're going to go back into a winter season loss? So I think the big thing is, when I sent out paychecks today, we were sent yesterday. They went out in the mail for today's pay period. I wrote a handwritten note in each one, put a little scratch off in there as a gift, lotto scratch off, just to kind of just to have something in there to maintain the contact. And I have every day made 2 or 3 phone calls, 1 or 2 to the staff, 1 or 2 to other colleagues across the and peers across the country to just try to maintain contact and just see what other people are going and to check in. It helps my own sanity as well as I hope it helps theirs, and it also helps just kind of share those stories. I mean, part of the reason I posted our letter about the furloughs that we were going to be doing this because I knew I wasn't alone at that point, and I just felt it was beneficial as I started before with the communications, and I mentioned on our radio show on Friday that it's important for us all to know that we're not alone and we're all got very tough decisions to make. So that's where we're at. I hope that kind of covers a lot for you, Gabe.
Yeah,
and everybody.
Thank you, Scott. And for those that don't know, Scott actually donated a portion of his salary to his employees, and that's why we had him on the show last week, which was an incredible selfless act. So I'll give you a virtual hand here, Scott, for doing that. And I know that we're all facing some really tough decisions here. Who else wants to chime in on some what they're doing with their employees?
Hey, John, I'm sorry, Gabe, this is Michael McCurdy again. Can John say something more on the 501c7s being exempt? That's the first I've heard of that. So where did that information come from? Is that direct from SBA? And does that involve both the normal emergency SBA loans as well as the $2 trillion stimulus? Can you speak to that more, John?
So Michael, this is coming from NCA. So that's where I pulled this information from.
National Club Association.
National Club Association. So that's basically saying that 501c7s, as of this legislation, of course, the NCA wants to get that back into a subsequent bill. But as of today, that's the stimulus package that is in that has been approved, and obviously is going will eventually hopefully become law. That one does not have that, but there are other provisions in there that we'll talk about that are good for the employees that are going to be unemployed.
Okay, thank you.
I know we got Keith Pabian on this call. Keith, I don't know if there's anything that you want to chime in on or give us any updates from your side. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead, and if you're there, Keith. Maybe Keith may have stepped away. Anyone else have anything to add about what you're doing at your club and how you're handling some of these issues with staffing?
Hi, Gabe. It's Michael Crandall.
Hey, Michael.
Hello there. I just want to say a 60,000-foot flyover here. I have been following NCA, and I see other leaders like Charles Dorn and many of you are. They're doing a great job. But one thing I would say is that, and it may go, duh, told me so I didn't know, your staff is the most important asset you have. It's not even the golf course or the chandeliers in the foyer or what have you, or even members, by the way. I know that's shocking. But it is your staff. And for those clubs that can allocate the funds that take care of their key staff as long as they can, just plain do it. I'm a big advocate of never having funds commingle in your capital reserve plan and what have you. But an abnormal reaction is normal, an abnormal situation. Indeed, my friends, this is highly abnormal. And you need to protect your staff the very best you can, not just because it's a moral thing to do. It's a business thing to do. Thank you very much. When your members put a date on the calendar they'd like to reopen at full capacity, as we all would as leaders, pick your date. Just pick it. And the better we are as leaders in the industry, GMs, PGA pros, superintendents, executive chefs, the better we are at whatever you do, the easier it looks to the consumer. And that's the way it should be. We're social professionals and they're consumers. However, members are under the illusion that the club should just open on such and such time. And they don't realize that even if that were accurate, and that's just for discussion purposes, it takes 2 to 3 weeks well before that for the club to ramp up. And you ramp up with whom? We all know that onboarding, hiring, and training is very, very expensive for new employees. And who is going to onboard and train these new employees of the club culture and how you do things around here? Well, it's your existing staff. If you don't have your existing staff, I'm not suggesting 100%, but every club needs to ascertain who these key people really are. And by the way, this is where your so-called sacred cows, and every club has some, are very, very valuable to you because it's going to give confidence to the membership when you do reopen. So anyway, I would suggest that you allocate whatever emergency funds you may be able to do at the board discretion and apply it to this. Just keep that in mind, please.
Good words, Michael. Whitney Pinnell, I'd love for you to chime in here. I know you dropped a comment into the box there. Whitney, are you there? If you need to unmute yourself, it's in the bottom left-hand window, guys, just so you know. Let me see if I can find her. We got so many people, it's hard to find people on here. Bill, did you have anything to add over at Loch Lomond?
Yeah, the last chap, Martin, can't remember his name, but was absolutely 100% correct. I would agree with everything he said. We're retaining all our full-time staff. You know, the thing about, I guess, a members club, I mean, who knows how long this thing's going to go on for, but, you know, assuming that we get back in action at some stage this year, you know, he's right. We have to get the staff back. The staff are familiar with the members. They make the club. The connection between the club and the members is often, of course, the staff. And, you know, we've projected that if we get back, you know, the latter part of the year, we'll be able to, you know, make good some of the losses that will have incurred. The key, I think, for certainly for our point of view, and I say for most clubs, I mean, members are members of their club, so they may have postponed their outing or may have postponed their event, but they may and probably have moved it to a later date, and that's certainly the case with us. And you know, instead of saying, listen, we're scrapping it, we've got, well, we're going to come early next year, we're going to come towards the latter part of this year, you know, and you need those key staff that are there. It costs you an absolute fortune to recruit and also to train, and they'll just not have the same connection. So I think, you know, if you can avoid it, you know, avoid it, because I think it's futile really to get rid of, we're keeping all our full-time staff. We have a large seasonal staff. They're on ice, obviously, at the moment, which is a shame, but it means that the full-timers, of which we have about 100, are kept employed, and we have about 100 seasonals who are waiting for the green for go, whenever that will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully sooner than later.
God, I hope so.
Diana DeLucia, you had chimed in on the chat. She wanted to know if managers were continuing to pay insurance to staff that are being laid off. So go ahead, and if you could answer her in the chat, that would be great, guys. Whitney, were you able to get your microphone back on? I don't hear Whitney, but what she put in the chat there is she's offering a virtual training to clubs for free for 30 days in case managers are looking for ways to keep them productive or take advantage of the downtime. So thanks to Whitney from RCS for doing that. Okay, we're going to move on to our third discussion point here, guys. And let me get, again, my keynote back up and running. We're talking about dues during closure. So what is your club doing in terms of dues during closure? I'm going to first bring it over to John Scherer over at the Charlotte City Club for what you guys are doing there, John.
And before I say anything, I just, with Whitney on the call, we use RCS, we use their training. It's great. So if you're not familiar with them, please, you know, please check them out. But as far as, you know, what we're doing for the members is, just so you get an idea, our resident dues are $179 a month. So the executive committee discussed this yesterday. We are not going to abate the dues. What we are going to do in its place is we are going to do a $100 dining certificate for each month the club is closed. We haven't decided how we're going to do the denominations, whether it's 2 certificates or how that's, all those details are going to get worked out later, but that's what we're going to communicate to the members. So they're going to get something, but we still intend for them to pay for the dues.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that right now we've got drastic measures are probably in order. Like
Gabe. Hi. I've had to connect my phone to the video. Sorry. Hi everyone. It's Whitney Pinnell. John, thank you. Gabe, thank you for having this. I did just want to tell everybody it's the only thing we can do right now, but we are offering our virtual training complimentary for 30 days to any owner operator in the industry. So if you're interested, just drop me a note, or you can find us on social media. But just wanted to be sure everybody knew we were doing that if you're trying to find ways to keep your staff engaged.
Thanks, Whitney.
I'll put myself back on mute now. Thank you.
It. Thanks for coming in. So getting back into the what John was saying about the dues. John, I had actually mentioned to you on the talk when we were having this discussion yesterday, getting ready, you know, I was kind of questioning if that was the right move. And you had some good reasoning there in terms of why that might be a good choice for some clubs. Can you reiterate that for folks, John?
Again, I mean, first of all, I assume the vast majority of people that are participating in this call are with a member-owned club. and not. And so if you're in a member-owned club, they are owners of the club. So we need to keep that in mind. And then secondly, when we do come out of this, we want the members to come and use the club. So by giving them a dining certificate, we're gonna certainly make it valid through the end of 2020. But we want them to get them in and start using the club on a regular basis. And that's the objective.
Yeah, and the other point we were talking about yesterday is that it's 10 times more expensive to get someone who has never to become a new member as to retain an existing member. So every club's going to have to answer that question for themselves about what measures they'll have to take. But just remember that, especially if you don't have a pipeline, if you're not taking care of that pipeline we talked before, and you're losing existing members, it's just going to be that much more of an uphill battle. So maybe doing some sort of temporary dues reduction or abatement may be in order for some clubs. Who else wants to chime in on this subject? I know, Michael Crandall, you probably have something to say about this.
Gabe, are you just assuming I must have something to say about everything?
Well, I know you're a dues guy.
Yeah, and thank you, Whitney, for doing what you're doing. Yeah, dues is the lifeblood of a club. We all know in the industry and the operations side, it's not food and beverage, it's not golf, it is dues. And a member-owned club, as John pointed out, every member are shareholders, and they have responsibility for the financial viability of their club. In a club that is not owned by the members, it's true that members don't have liability for that. However, those who live in gated communities, if you do live there, the success of your club is directly linked to your home value, without question. And so you have every reason in the world to support it as long as you can. So dues are vitally important. It's not operations at all. In fact, we all know that operations, whether it's F&B or skeet shooting or renting slips or whatever it may be, fitness classes are often offered as a loss leader. They're not generating revenue that falls to the bottom line, but dues definitely does. And when you lose that, it's a significant impact. Member-owned clubs, guess what? You're going to have to make it up. And I absolutely love John's idea with the F&B credits. Every club figure out work for them. But guess what? If you lose dues income because you say, oh, we're not going to do it, guess what that means? If the bottom line has a deficit, there's going to be an assessment. There's no way around it. People are going to pay for it one way or the other. But dues is the lifeblood of the club. Thanks for asking.
Yep. Marta Kostelny in the comments asked if anyone had any tips on how to remind your members that they are actually owners and not just members. Any of you managers out there want to chime in on that one?
Well, Gabe, I would tell you in our most recent letter from the president, he did remind them that they are owners of the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie, if you're still on the call, I'd love to hear about what's happening in the UK a little bit, because you guys obviously have a little bit of a different structure there where oftentimes members, they're paying for the year and whatnot. How are you guys handling it?
Yeah, the same. I hear very similar stories, but a lot of the subscriptions, as you call them, dues, have arrived on a lot of tables at the moment. So you get a lot that from the 1st of April. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're quite concerned about what the repercussions are going to be. However, it's interesting that they've put in place the potential of putting some F&B credits, as you've just said there. So that's ahead of the game. Or, the frightening thing is not to devalue the product at all. That's the important thing. And that's what they're going to be fighting with, because some of the boards will look at really making some reductions instead of looking more for the future and betting into the sort of opportunities to look after your staff and keep them there and reinvesting in it. So that's the area.
Thank you, Eddie. Scott Lockwood said in the comments to call them stewards. So that's a good one. And he stole this line: club members are also stewards of their club, ours since 1910. I think that's right. I think you need to really reframe it for your members, that this is not just a monthly expense like their internet bill or something else. This is really they're part of a community and they need to take some ownership in that. That's certainly something that needs to be communicated to your members during this time. Anyone else want to chime in on this one before we move on?
I can talk to something.
Yeah, please.
Okay,
please tell us who you are.
I'm Laura Decker. I'm from VM Meisner Golf and City Club. I'm in Boca right now. But I have been hearing from all kinds of people that do club membership development and management. I've worked in lots of places, and resignations are starting to come in the mail. So I just want to say that anything that the club can do is very, very important. One particular club I spoke with, a yacht club in Westchester County, who sends out their dues notices right now, had 50 resignations this week.
Wow.
So I'm sorry if that's a little bit harsh for news for us, but I think it's a wake-up call that if you're involved in this at all, anything that you can do that adds member value at this time, I would recommend that we do.
Yeah. Let me a couple points on that one. So you just said that, they're sending paper statements out in the mail. If you guys are at your club sending paper statements, don't just send the bill, put something else in there, in that envelope.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important takeaway. I've got this, and if you've heard me talk at some of my keynotes and stuff, I've got this American Express Platinum card, and every single month they remind me of all the ways that being a member of American Express or being a Platinum Club member is a help to me. Whether it's I get $200 in baggage fees, I get $20 in Uber credits, whatever the case may be, they constantly tell me why, what all the benefits of being a member are, having that card. And so this is just a good wake-up call to all of us to start communicating a little bit better about what some of the benefits of membership are once we get past this thing. But even now during this time, remind folks of the opportunities and the things that are special about being a member of this club, and also the family and community side. Again, if people can put a face, their fellow club members are not just nameless, numbers, right? There's faces. So if you can tell the story about maybe profiling some of the families, profiling some of the people that are a part of this community, doing things like Towns and Michael McCurdy did at the Players in New York, and putting them in these virtual rooms using a Zoom call, getting people connected, again, is going to be a way that we can tackle this and make sure that hopefully your clubs aren't losing 50 members in a month. Does anyone else want, thank you so much for chiming in there. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to speak to this before we move on to the last subject here?
So Gabe, just one other thing. I mean, we do have an inactive category. We've had it actually for a long time, over 15 years, and it's really helped us, especially in 2008 in the Great Recession, that helped us quite a bit. But how it works is any member can go inactive, and they pay 25% of whatever their applicable dues are. They continue to get communications from the club, and at any point in the future, they can go back active status. You just don't, the only caveat is they cannot jump in and jump out. So we certainly probably like your members that have second homes at the beach or in the mountains, and they're going to be gone for a month or two. They can't jump in and out. They can do it. Once they go back to active status, they have to maintain active status for 3 years.
Yep, well said, well said. So if you guys have some of those things in your bylaws, definitely take a look and see what you can do at your own clubs there. The last topic here we're going to talk about is legislation. We kind of touched on it a little bit before, just being mindful of people's time. We have 5 minutes before 12 here. I just want to let you know that I'm going to be doing an Ask Me Anything session very similar to this on Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. If you're in the UK, that's 7 o'clock. I'm not sure what that is in Qatar and Dubai, but I think it's probably about 1 in the morning, something like that. But we'll be doing that. So if you want to come back on, be part of this community and do what we're doing here, we'll be doing that Tuesday at 2. I'm going to try to do that moving forward every Tuesday at 2, just so you know. But John, we're going to talk about legislation and maybe if there's any more points that you wanted to make or anything else that we should be aware of, let us know here right now, if you don't mind, sir.
So in the stimulus bill, of course, we mentioned about how the existing bill does not benefit 501c7 organizations. It does not have the provision for the SBA loan. So we had all hoped for that, and that is not happening, at least now. But there is a provision in there which is for the employees that you're laying off. that they will receive $600 per week in addition to whatever their unemployment benefits are within your state. So that's, in a number of cases, our hourly employees are actually going to make out better by being unemployed with this $600 benefit. But in addition to that, what I would bring to your attention is that there is also something called qualified disaster payments. Since the president declared a national emergency, there is a section of the IRS code called Section 139 that is about qualified disaster payments. You can make payments to employees and they are tax-free and it's not income. So it has to be used for food or medical reasons or perhaps rent. And we're planning to do that with the employees that we are laying off. So that's the qualified disaster payments. And then the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, that goes into effect on April the 1st. You really need to look at that if you haven't already. And if you do not have work for someone on April the 1st, they say you are in a stay-at-home situation, you have to pay them 2 weeks' pay. You're required to by law. Now, on the other side, you get a 50% credit against your payroll taxes for paying that. So, and maybe there's someone else on the, and there's a lot more detail to that particular act, but I'm just trying to hit the highlights. And maybe there's someone else on this that has even more information they could share.
While we're waiting for anyone to chime in on that one, again, I just want to remind you, the National Club Association has a very good website going. It's nationalclub.org/coronavirus. And they've got a number of these documents and things that John's actually alluding to. So they're keeping a really good database of things like this. We've got Jacob, who asked the question to the group here: is anyone else launching an employee assistance fund? If so, have you had any negative impacts surrounding this? I don't know if there's any other managers out there, whether you're in the United States or internationally, that are doing something like this. Okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do right now is, again, if anything comes to mind, go ahead and put it in the comments. But now we're going to just sort of open things up here in terms of idea sharing. We've already shared a lot of ideas, and I want to thank everyone who's participated on this. But we'll keep this going for another 5 or 10 minutes. And just in case there's other ideas based on any of those 5 topics we talked about today that you're doing at your club. And then again, don't forget, put it down in your calendar, 2 p.m. on Tuesday, Eastern time, 11 a.m. Pacific, we'll be doing another Ask Me Anything. So hi there, you want to chime in? Is that Cindy?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Cindy from
Iowa.
Orlando. How are you doing?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So some of the things that we have done, besides the to-go foods, Easter's coming in. We had already had our Easter eggs and Easter fillers and everything like that. So we're doing a pickup of an Easter bundle that has a cinch bag with Easter eggs filled, and it's been quite responsive from the members, and they're thrilled that we're doing that. Also, one of the things that I've done is, like, every day I remember to thank the members, okay? And so I've sent old pictures to them with funny captions on them. And then today we've instructed all of our staff to thank them profusely for supporting these to-go meals. And thanks for being supportive of our staff, because our members really are thinking of our staff. And every day we have quite a few to-go meals. And it's only because that they really care for their club.
Yeah.
And the last thing I thought, I'm in a neighborhood, gated neighborhood. It's a single-owned club. It's not an equity club, but we're thinking about having a contest for decorating your golf carts or your bikes or your little tight coupes or your scooters, and then you put them at the end of the driveway and you sit in them with a theme, and then the judges come around on that day and have a cash prize. It's sponsored by the real estate division and by the country club.
Cool. That's excellent.
The
So,
last thing we do is we're doing new special occasions at home. So in addition to our recently popular delivery service, we are reminding people on their birthdays that, you know, your birthdays are coming up. Can we get a cake going for you for home delivery? Or can we do a special meal for you for your birthday?
Cool.
Because in a couple of weeks, when the time comes, you know, that's going to be important. They're going to have cabin fever. So we're trying to progressively move forward.
I love that. Those are great ideas. And Cindy's at Isleworth. If you've never been to the Isleworth locker room and you're ever in Orlando, make sure to get in touch with Cindy. It's something you got to see to believe. So thanks for chiming in there. Who else has some ideas to share with us before we wrap things up today?
Michael, can I jump in with a comment here?
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, Gabe. I was just thinking about something Michael said and something Whitney said. I think that all these ideas are great, and please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. I think you're being a little short-sighted if you don't start thinking about strategically about how you're going to reopen. I think as important as all the stuff is that we're doing to maintain members, to retain members, to retain prospects, as we talked about earlier, the fact is that you're not going to be able to come back online the way you went offline. You don't know what you're going to have for employees. You don't know what you're going to have for facilities. You don't know which facilities you're going to allow to be open. And I think you need to spend some significant time between now and, we'll say X, because none of us know what that is, to really think about how you're going to do that and have a plan in place. Because you may wake up one morning in 2 or 3 weeks and a government official says you can open a part of the club. And if you haven't thought about how you're going to do it, and if you haven't thought about what restrictions you might be able to do and what staff might or might not be available, I mean, somebody mentioned earlier that all their interns are still not anywhere near the club. So how are you going to open the club? And so I think you really need to do some strategic thinking about how you're going to do that to move forward.
Yep. Well said, Charles. I think we need to really plan for all sorts of different eventualities. That's absolutely 100% true. Thanks for chiming in there, Charles. Anyone else have any other ideas they want to add to this conversation?
Looks like Whitney wants to say something.
Okay, let's see if we can find a way to unmute her again. Here we go. Yeah, you're unmuted, actually. Well, Whitney, pop it in the comments for us, and we'll make sure that gets out to everybody.
Okay, wait, sorry. I
there you
just
go.
wanted to say I agree with Charles 100%, and I also think this is a great opportunity for everyone to think about their operations for the future. You know, if they wanted to make some changes, but they weren't quite sure how to do it, I think coming out of limited operations is a great opportunity to sort of restructure and launch the services that you really want at this time. So that's all I just wanted to add. So I agree.
Thanks, Whitney. Michael Braidwood, you're coming to us from Qatar. We'd love to hear about what's going on over there from your perspective, sir. If you can chime in. I might have scared him away. But
I will chime in really quick.
Yeah, Denny, please do.
So not for anything, you know, I'm just a guy who does a really funny show, but I'm friends with a lot of employees, you know, from servers and people who just find me on social media after doing, you know, clubs and doing repeat clubs. And I doubt anybody here would do this. But I did have one club. She was not full-time. She worked part-time in the summer as a cart girl, and then, like, you know, as a waitress and bartender whenever they needed her. But I'm not going to name names of clubs, but basically they got rid of all, like, non-essential personnel. So part-timers, people like, you know, the wait staff, all that. And they did it in a way that basically said, hey, you're done here. And when we finally open, if you want to reapply, you're more than welcome. And the staff was, like, besides themselves. It wasn't just like hey, it's like a shit, like a group, almost said something bad. It's a bad, you know, thing that's happening, but just to say, like, hey, you can, like, reapply. It just hit the staff really hard. A couple of people, like, messaged me because it was a really good club client of mine, and just how you interact and treat your staff, because kind of like, you know, you don't know when you're going to be open, how close and when and all that stuff. So and plus I think, you know, members are also close to the staff also. So if your club is, you know, one way to the members and another way to the staff, they might think about a different club or a different situation when the things open back up. So just, being like a this kind of complete outsider is hearing staff tell me that they're getting kind of crapped on, just makes you, I doubt anybody on this call would have that issue, since you're here and obviously want to be a more progressive club. But just something that came across my messages last night, and I was like, ooh, yikes. So
yeah, no,
just throw it out there.
That's right. I mean, I think there's been a lot of blowback from businesses that are really trying to take advantage of this situation too. Again, I really think that this is the time to build relationships, maintain relationships, but it's not necessarily to drive home any sales or anything like that at this stage. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Just a couple last things. Thank you all so much for being on this call. I'm going to drop a link into the comments. We put together just some tools that might be good for your club if you do take the step that I'm recommending in terms of staying in communication and doing a lot of video with your club. That link will take you to a number of tools that we would recommend for you. I'm going to be doing a number of one-on-one calls next week. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments, and we can work on your communication strategy for your club or for your organization. Because again, this is really the time where there's actually a lot of opportunity when everyone is down right now. We have a really good opportunity to pivot and do some interesting things, and to get nimble with our businesses and with our clubs. So if you'd like to do one of those one-on-ones, just let me know. I'm also going to drop my cell phone in, which is also my WhatsApp number. So if you want to chat with me offline, that's my actual cell phone number. You can send me a text, send me a WhatsApp message. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I hope to see you Tuesday at 2 p.m. We'll do another one of these, and hopefully things will be in a little better situation all over the world. So thanks.